Have you ever felt like the world is moving on without you? Like the phone rings less, the visits stop, and suddenly, solitude becomes your daily reality. At first, it might feel peaceful, but over time, something changes. Loneliness starts creeping in, and with it, unexpected challenges. Ones that can slowly take a toll on your mind, body, and even your safety. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about something that isn't always easy to discuss, but is incredibly important. The dark side of solitude for seniors. When being alone stops being a choice and starts becoming a way of life, it can have surprising effects that many people don't see coming. But don't worry, we're also going to talk about ways to recognize these challenges and, most importantly, how to overcome them. If you or someone you love is struggling with isolation, stick around. You might just find the motivation to take that first step back into connection. Number 1. The silent loss of social skills and confidence. You may not notice it at first. You tell yourself you're just taking a break from people, enjoying your own company. But then, something changes. The longer you go without social interaction, the harder it becomes to re-enter the world. You start overthinking conversations, worrying about what to say and how to act. Take Michael's experience. He was once a charismatic businessman, constantly engaging with clients and co-workers. But after retirement, he found himself with fewer reasons to interact. At first, he welcomed the quiet. No meetings, no small talk, no obligations. But as the months turned into years, something shifted. One day he ran into an old colleague at the grocery store. Instead of feeling joy, he panicked. His words felt clumsy, his responses slow. The conversation was awkward, and for the first time in his life, he felt socially out of place. The encounter left him anxious, and he started avoiding people altogether, convinced he had lost his ability to communicate. When you don't use your social skills, they begin to fade, just like a muscle that isn't exercised. You start feeling self-conscious, afraid of saying the wrong thing, worried that you no longer fit into the world around you, and the more you withdraw, the harder it becomes to step back in. But here's the truth. It's never too late to rebuild confidence. Start small. A friendly nod to a neighbor, a short chat with a cashier, a phone call to an old friend. These tiny interactions add up. And just like riding a bike, social skills can be regained with practice. 2. The slow, unnoticed decline in physical health. Loneliness doesn't just affect the mind, it takes a toll on the body too. When you have fewer reasons to leave the house, physical activity decreases. Over time, this leads to stiffness, muscle loss, and even chronic health problems. Look at Diane's story. She was once an active woman, always taking long walks with her best friend Linda. But after Linda moved to another state, Diane found herself walking less and less. She told herself it was just a phase, that she'd get back into it. But the days turned into weeks, and soon, walking around the house felt like enough. The couch became her comfort zone, and the thought of exercising alone didn't appeal to her. What she didn't realize was that her strength was slowly fading. One day, while reaching for a jar on the top shelf, she lost her balance and fell. The doctor told her that her muscles had weakened significantly, making her more prone to falls. That's when it hit her. Her solitude wasn't just emotional, it was affecting her body in ways she hadn't even noticed. When you stop moving, your body starts to break down. Joint pain increases, energy levels drop, and even simple tasks become challenging. Without social interaction, there's no one to encourage you to stay active, no one to invite you for a walk, or remind you to take care of yourself. If this sounds familiar, start with small changes. Stretch while watching TV, walk around the house every hour, or find a simple exercise video online. Better yet, invite someone to join you. It's easier to stay active when you have company. 3. The unseen battle with depression and anxiety. Loneliness doesn't just bring sadness, it rewires your thoughts. When you spend too much time alone, your mind starts playing tricks on you. Negative thoughts become louder, self-doubt creeps in, and slowly, the world starts feeling darker. Take Eleanor's experience. She was a warm, loving grandmother, always surrounded by family. But after her husband passed and her children became busy with their own lives, the house grew quieter. At first she enjoyed the silence, the freedom to do as she pleased. But soon the silence became suffocating. She started overthinking everything, like, why hadn't her son called? Did her friends really care about her, or were they just being polite? The more she sat alone with her thoughts, the more convinced she became that she was forgotten. She lost interest in things she once loved, even ignoring her favorite TV shows. Depression in seniors often goes unnoticed because it doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes it's just a deep emptiness, a lack of motivation, a feeling that nothing matters. If you've been feeling this way, know that you're not alone. There are people who care, even if it doesn't always feel that way. Call someone, even if you don't feel like talking. Step outside, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Small actions can pull you out of the darkness, one step at a time. 4. When you were younger, your days had structure. Maybe it was a job raising a family or hobbies that gave your life meaning. But as the years pass and responsibilities fade, it's easy to fall into the trap of feeling like you have no purpose. And that, my friend, is dangerous. Take George's story. He was a retired teacher, once passionate about shaping young minds, but after retirement he found himself with too much time and not enough direction. Days felt endless, blending into each other. He stopped setting an alarm and stopped making plans. The world felt like it was moving forward without him. He used to wake up with purpose, knowing he was making a difference. But now? Now he struggled to even find a reason to get out of bed. And the scariest part? He didn't even notice the shift happening. When you lose motivation, everything else starts to slip. Your health, your social life, and even your self-worth. That's why finding a new purpose is essential, no matter your age. Maybe it's volunteering, mentoring, or learning something new. Maybe it's starting a small garden or even writing letters to loved ones. Purpose doesn't have to be big, it just has to be meaningful to you. 5. You know what they say, use it or lose it. That doesn't just apply to muscles. It applies to the brain, too. Your mind is like a garden. It needs stimulation, challenges, and conversation to stay sharp. Without these things, the weeds of forgetfulness start to grow. Take Margaret's experience. She was once a crossword puzzle champion, able to recall details from decades ago with ease. But after her husband passed, she spent more time alone. She stopped playing word games because, well, what was the point? At first it was little things, misplacing her keys, forgetting a neighbor's name, but then one day she couldn't remember her own phone number. It scared her. She wondered, am I losing my mind? The truth is, that isolation can accelerate memory decline. Without conversations, your brain isn't challenged. Without new experiences, your mind isn't being exercised. And the less you engage with the world, the more your cognitive abilities start to fade. But here's the good news. You can reverse it. Talk to someone every day, even if it's just a short chat. Try brain-stimulating activities like puzzles, reading, and learning a new skill. Even listening to a podcast can help. Your brain is still capable of growing, but you have to feed it the right things. 6. When you live alone, meals start to feel unimportant. Cooking for one doesn't seem worth the effort, and before you know it, you're surviving on frozen dinners, snacks, or worse, skipping meals altogether. Look at David's story. He was a fantastic cook when his wife was alive. They used to try new recipes together, making their kitchen a place of laughter and love. But after she passed, cooking lost its joy. He started eating whatever was easiest, like canned soup, crackers, and sometimes just a cup of coffee. His appetite shrank, and so did his energy levels. One day he felt dizzy while getting out of bed and nearly fainted. The doctor told him he was severely malnourished, lacking the essential nutrients his body needed. It was a wake-up call, but one he never saw coming. When you're alone, there's no one to remind you to eat well, no one to say, hey, you haven't had a real meal today. Over time, poor nutrition weakens your immune system, causes weight loss or gain, and can even lead to serious health problems like diabetes or heart disease. If this sounds familiar, start small. Plan simple, nutritious meals. Set reminders to eat. And if cooking feels like too much, look into meal delivery services or invite a friend over for dinner. Eating well is an act of self-care, and you deserve that care. 7. Loneliness can make you more trusting, and sometimes too trusting. When you don't have regular social interactions, you start craving connection, and unfortunately, there are people out there who take advantage of that. Take Linda's story. She was a widow who lived alone, spending most of her days watching TV and scrolling through social media. One evening, she got a call from a man claiming to be her grandson, saying he was in trouble and needed money. Panicked, she wired him $2,000, only to later discover that it was a scam. She wasn't just devastated about the money, but also felt ashamed and embarrassed that she'd been tricked. But the truth is that scams targeting seniors are incredibly common. From fake IRS calls to fraudulent charity requests, loneliness makes you more susceptible to believing in the wrong people. So how do you protect yourself? Stay informed. Never give out personal information over the phone. If you get a suspicious call, check with a trusted family member before acting. And most importantly, stay connected with others, because scammers thrive on isolation. 8. When life feels empty, people look for ways to fill the void. Sometimes that means watching TV for hours on end. Other times it means turning to alcohol or even prescription medications as a way to numb the loneliness. Take Richard's experience. After retirement, he found himself with too much time and not enough purpose. At first, he enjoyed the freedom, waking up late, watching his favorite shows, and having a drink in the afternoon. But soon, one drink turned into 2, then 3. He stopped caring about the time, about his health, about anything at all. His family didn't notice at first. They assumed he was just enjoying retirement. But inside, Richard felt empty, lost. And instead of reaching out, he kept drinking, using it as a way to escape the silence that had become his life. Addiction doesn't always look like what you see in movies. Sometimes it's just a slow, steady habit that creeps in unnoticed. Whether it's alcohol, painkillers, or even just excessive TV, it's a sign that something deeper is wrong. If you see yourself in this, don't ignore it. Find healthier ways to fill your time, like joining a group, taking up a hobby, or talking to someone about what you're feeling. You don't have to fight the loneliness alone. 9. Do you remember the last time you felt deeply moved by something? Maybe it was a touching moment in a movie, a story someone shared, or the simple warmth of a hug. Now, imagine if that ability to feel, to connect, slowly faded away. That's what happens with long-term solitude. When you stop engaging with people, emotions start to shut down. At first, it might feel like a defense mechanism, a way to protect yourself from the pain of loneliness. But over time, it turns into something worse: numbness. Let me tell you about James. He was a man who used to cry at weddings, laugh until his stomach hurt, and feel genuine joy in the company of others. But after his wife passed and his children got busy with their own lives, he withdrew. He told himself he was fine. After all, he still read the newspaper and still watched his favorite TV shows. But something changed. One day, his granddaughter came to visit. She was excited, telling him all about a school play she was in. But James barely reacted. He nodded and forced a smile. But inside, he felt nothing. He wasn't sad. He wasn't happy. He just existed. And that's the scary thing about emotional numbness. When you stop experiencing emotions fully, you also stop relating to others. You lose empathy. You stop understanding how people feel because you're so disconnected from your own emotions. If you've noticed this in yourself, don't ignore it. Reconnecting with people, even in small ways, can help reawaken emotions. Try calling an old friend, watching a heartfelt movie, or even volunteering. Feelings don't disappear forever. They just need to be reignited. 10. Increased risk of elder abuse. This is one of the most heartbreaking and terrifying consequences of isolation. When seniors are alone, they become prime targets for abuse, whether it's financial, emotional, or even physical. The worst part? Many don't even realize it's happening. Take Martha's story. She was a widow who lived alone with no close family nearby. Her only regular contact was a friendly neighbor, Tom, who started helping her with errands. At first, he seemed like a godsend, picking up groceries and driving her to appointments. But over time, his kindness turned into control. He began handling her finances, telling her not to worry about bills. He discouraged her from calling her relatives, saying they were too busy. Eventually, Martha became completely dependent on him. She didn't realize that he had drained her savings, forging her checks and using her credit cards. By the time her niece visited and noticed what was happening, it was too late. Martha had lost almost everything. And Martha's story isn't unique. Seniors who are isolated are far more vulnerable to being taken advantage of. Sometimes it's a kind neighbor. Other times it's a caregiver, a family member, or even a scammer over the phone. The less you interact with others, the fewer people there are to notice when something is wrong. So how do you protect yourself? Stay connected. Even if it's just checking in with a friend or relative once a week, having outside relationships can help ensure that someone is looking out for you. Keep control of your finances. Never give full financial access to someone without safeguards. If you need help, consider talking to a professional or a trusted relative. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, if someone starts isolating you from others, discourages you from making decisions, or asks for financial favors, listen to that feeling. No one deserves to be taken advantage of. And the more connected you stay, the safer you'll be. 11. The deepening sense of being invisible to the world. Do you ever feel like you're fading? Like you've become invisible, as if the world keeps moving forward while you're standing still? That feeling, that sense that no one sees you anymore, is one of the darkest sides of solitude. Susan knows this feeling well. She was once a lively woman, active in her community, involved in church events, and always ready to lend a hand. But as the years went by, things changed. Her children got busy with their own lives, old friends moved away or passed on, and suddenly, the invitations stopped coming. At first, she told herself it was just a phase, but as time passed, she realized something painful. People just weren't checking in on her like they used to. No one was asking her opinion. No one was calling to see how she was doing. One day, she went to the grocery store and realized she hadn't spoken to anyone in days. She smiled at the cashier, hoping for a little small talk, but the transaction was rushed and impersonal. She walked back to her car with tears in her eyes, thinking, "Have I really become invisible?" This is the reality for many seniors. When you don't see people often, they stop seeing you. Not because they don't care, but because life moves fast, and without regular contact, you slowly slip from their daily thoughts. But here's what you need to remember. You are still here. You do matter. And just because people aren't reaching out doesn't mean they wouldn't love to hear from you. If you've been feeling invisible, take control of your visibility. Call your loved ones, even if they haven't called first. Join a group, even if it feels intimidating at first. Make your presence known. The world hasn't forgotten you, but sometimes it just needs a little reminder. 12. The emotional toll of having no one to share your daily life with. Have you ever had a moment when you wanted to share something, good or bad, but realized there was no one to tell? That small joy of having someone to talk to, laugh with, or vent to. It's something we don't realize we need until it's gone. This is what Frank struggled with after his wife passed away. They had been married for 50 years, and even the most ordinary days felt special because they shared them together. Whether it was complaining about the weather, debating what to eat for dinner, or just watching TV in comfortable silence, their life was full of little moments that mattered. But when she was gone, so were those moments. The house felt emptier, the silence heavier. He would see something funny on TV, turn to tell her, and then remember she wasn't there. The loneliness hit hardest not in the big, dramatic ways, but in those small, everyday moments that used to be shared. When you have no one to share life with, the days start to feel meaningless. Meals become routine instead of enjoyable. Achievements, no matter how small, feel hollow when there's no one to celebrate them with. Even struggles feel heavier because there's no one to help carry the burden. If this sounds familiar, Don't underestimate the power of companionship, even if it's not the same as before. Companionship doesn't have to come from a spouse. It can be a friend, a neighbor, a pet, or even an online community. The important thing is to share, to find someone who listens, someone who cares. Make it a habit to reach out. Call a friend just to say hello. Join a group, even if it's just for casual conversation. If you enjoy writing, send letters to old friends. You'd be surprised how many people are longing for connection, just like you. Life is meant to be shared, and even the smallest moments feel richer when you have someone to share them with. Loneliness has a way of creeping in so slowly that you don't even notice it, until you do. But the good news? It's never too late to reconnect. A small step today, whether it's a phone call, a short walk outside, or even just engaging in a conversation, can start changing everything. If any of this resonates with you, I encourage you to take action. Reach out to someone. Share this video with a friend or a loved one who might need to hear it. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more content like this, and let's keep this conversation going in the comments. Because no matter where you are in life, you are not alone, and there are always people who care. You just have to take that first step.